Here's a brief video tutorial on how to doodle a basic brain in PowerPoint. So again, we're going to be using the scribble drawing function, but it's more of a doodle than a professional drawing. So first you need a PowerPoint slide. You can open PowerPoint, get a blank slide, and then if you want, you can just go straight to the scribble tool and we could draw a basic brain. Now for many of you, you might not be comfortable just drawing the outline of a basic brain. You'd like it to be a little bit more accurate as you're learning how the brain is structured. So what you can do is go to the internet and you can search for brain figure ventricles. So you can see I did that. And then go to the image search and you can see that there are a bunch of different options and they're all basically giving you similar information. So I like this one, so I'll select that. And then if I right click, I can copy the image, go to PowerPoint, and then press Control V or Command V if you're on a Mac. I'm going to resize it here so it's a good size to sit right there in the center. I could, again, move it off to the side and I could grab my scribble tool and try and approximate it. Or I can move it here to the center and get a good feeling for how the brain is structured by just tracing over it. So if I grab my scribble tool and draw around, it doesn't need to be perfect. But here I've got the cerebrum, and now I have that basic outline. And then I'll go ahead and draw in my pons here, and then the brain stem, and I'll make that a complete object. And then I'll do the same thing for the cerebellum. Okay, so we have three major structures. I can select all three by holding Shift and then clicking on each one, then hovering over one of them and right-clicking and changing my outline to black, changing my outline to 4, and then changing my outline to dashed. But this time, actually, because they're the major structures, I'll leave them as solid. I then want to change the different colors, so I'll right-click, do Fill, and then I'll make it kind of this fleshy color here. I'll make the brain stem this kind of grayish color here. And then the cerebellum here, I'll make, let's make it orange. All right. So I clearly need to label these. So if I go to my text box, I can write cerebrum. I can right-click on the outside edge, make it black, make it thick, and then make it dashed. And then if I draw in a label line or a pointer here, I can then do select the cerebrum box, select Format Painter, and select the pointer line. If I then select both objects by holding Shift or Control and then selecting on either one of or both of them, I can then group these. By grouping them, I can select that outside box, press Control-C or Command-C, and move it around. And I'll go ahead and point to the cerebellum here and change my label. Do the same thing for the brainstem. So I also want to show you that you can draw internal structures and kind of layer things. So the ventricles are internal structures. That's one of the ones we're going to draw. And so to do that, I could approximate it again, or I can right-click and move my image to the front. I can also do that by selecting the object and cutting and pasting. I did that by Control-X and then Control-V, or Command-X and Command-V if you're on a Mac. So for my ventricles, I'm going to trace each part separately. So here are the lateral ventricles. Go around. Again, they don't have to be perfect. Just an approximation so that you can keep track of the different pieces. So here's the third ventricle. Looks a little like a duck head. If you don't see it, that's okay. I say that in honor of my neuroanatomy professor in undergrad. Then I'm drawing in the cerebral aqueduct here. Oh, I didn't make a full object, so I'll go ahead and delete that. Try that again. So my cerebral aqueduct, there we go. And then we'll draw in the fourth ventricle here and a little bit. All right. Now you can see here that the cerebral aqueduct is sitting on top of the lateral ventricle. Obviously that doesn't make sense because this outer arm or horn should be in the temporal lobes, which is pretty lateral, whereas the cerebral aqueduct is medial. So in order to deal with that, I'm going to select this object, and then I'm going to cut and paste it, so now it's on top. I can then select each of the other objects by pressing Control or Shift, and then clicking on each one. I'm going to right-click over one of them, make the outline black, make the weight a 3, make it dashed, and we'll leave them as blue. Okay? So now if I want to draw the flow of the CSF, I can start down here and kind of draw in, and we'll stop it there. And what we want to do is add in an arrow to the end of that. So I can go to Format, and then if I select Style Shapes, it'll give me a bunch of options. In a Mac, you'll end up selecting various, the Format option, and then there will be listed probably at the top a number of other options that look like this. So our end arrow wants to be like that, and we want it to be a big end arrow. And we want to change the color of the line to black, and we want to change the width to, say, 3. All right. We're then going to go back to Home, get our scribble tool, and draw, okay, it's going into the third ventricle. And we'll draw the scribble tool again and show that it's going down the cerebral aqueduct. And then we'll draw in another arrow showing that it goes into the fourth ventricle and then down. And then I can simply paint. So I grab that object and select Format Painter, select this one, then select Format Painter, select this one, and Format Painter again, and select this one. And so if I grab one of these, copy and paste it, and grab it and move it down, I can label this as the flow of CSF. Okay? So now that I have it, I can move my brain out of the way. And I could just leave it like this, where we're looking from one side and we're seeing the ventricles, and then we're actually seeing the other side of the brain. But there's kind of a neat tool where we could move this to the front and then make it opaque. Before we do that, I just want to point out that the flow here should be going down the cerebral aqueduct, so I need to make this behind the lateral ventricle. So to do that, I'll right-click, select Send to Back, or Send Backwards, and I'll do that a couple of times until I see it drop behind the lateral ventricle. And there we go. So now we can follow this flow all the way around. Okay? If you have trouble seeing that, you can select them and make them, say, red. Oh, we won't make them red. Oh, we want to make the outline red. There we go. So the outline, we'll make the outline red, and now it's easier to see. Okay? So if we want, we can give the opaque function a try. So we'll select the cerebrum here. We're going to cut and paste it, and now we're covering it up. But if I select that object and press Format, I can then go to Shape Styles, and then I can increase the transparency to 40%. I could do the same thing with the brainstem and the cerebellum, and again select 40%. And so I'm going to undo that because I need to do each of those separately. Okay? So let's do this one separately, 40%, and this one separately, 40%. And so now you can see that we have our structures here, and they're overlaying on top of them, illustrating that the ventricles are on the inside. So with that, I hope you found it helpful. You can then delete this if you want. You can add labels to the ventricles, but you should be good to go.